We are live. There's so much to do when we're getting ready, and especially when you're by yourself and you're me trying to figure it all out. But hopefully, here we are. We have arrived. If you're new here, I want to take a minute and say welcome home. My name is Heidi. This is Addiction and Codependency Breakthrough. And actually, this is our Wednesday night live. It is going to be our first time recording live an episode of our podcast. So I am so excited to be with you tonight. And I was thinking a lot about what I really wanted to talk with you tonight about and how I could really serve you. And what's been on my mind the most lately is this idea of people being stuck. And I know that, you might be one of those people where you thought, man, I certainly, I'll tell you what I hear all the time. I didn't, I didn't think I'd end up here, or this isn't what I signed up for. So many people that I work with never thought in a million years that they'd be in this position that they're in. In fact, a lot of the people that I work with worked really hard not to be in this position. Maybe they escaped somewhere. They grew up in a situation that wasn't the best, or they overcame some hardships, or they had that one toxic relationship that they got into when they were younger, and they thought they'd gotten out of it and escaped. But here they are now again in a toxic or dysfunctional relationship. And I happen to specialize in addiction and codependency. And I work with people who are in relationships with addicts or alcoholics. And even that word is like, well, they don't even really think they're an addict or an alcoholic. They're not, I'm not even sure. Well, here's how you know. Is it a problem for you? Is it creating issues in your relationships? Have in your relationship with them? Have you talked with them about their substance use before, and they've said things like, it's I know I've got to cool out or chill out for a little bit, and so you're kind of ad nauseum thinking to yourself, I've had the lectures, I've had the conversations, I've done everything I can do to help this person make the decision to choose our family over everything else, but here they are, and you find yourself at a crossroads. And that's usually where I meet people, is at a crossroads. And the crossroads destination is stay or go. And that can be a really tough place to be in. So what's likely led you here is a mix of emotions that you've been feeling. So let's make sure that you're in the right spot, first of all, before we even dive into this podcast or this live taping of our podcast here on YouTube. And I'm also in our private Facebook group in multiple places. So let me make sure you're in the right place. Are you in a relationship that causes you on a regular basis to feel resentful? You keep offering up the right strategy, the right thing to do, or you offer up your help, or you offer up your guidance, and you find that the person that you're trying to help just doesn't do what you ask them to do. And so, if you just did what I would ask you to do, you'd be so much better, but they won't. And so then you end up resentful, or you're resentful because you're doing it all. You're carrying all of the load. And this is equal opportunity, right? It's all genders. It's everybody is in this situation. I'm not just talking to women or men. I'm talking to everybody. But you find that you're pulling the weight and the load of everything in your family. You feel like if you are not in control of everything at all times, it could blow up at any possible moment. Another resentment from doing it all and overdoing and overextending could be maybe you just feel overwhelmed all the time. You feel like you have all the balls in the air and you're juggling, and you can't let anything drop, and it's just always up to you. And you're like a ticking time bomb in many respects, where you're holding it together all day at work and you do what you have to do. And I work with a lot of really successful people, doctors, nurses, entrepreneurs, coaches, therapists, a lot of people who can manage to keep it together, but you're hanging on by a thread. When you come home at the end of a day of your work, you don't know what to expect. It's a Jekyll or a Hyde situation. You walk in, you don't know what you're going to get. You pray that it's just going to be like an easy night, or if it's the weekend and somebody's saving up for the weekend to torture the family, you're feeling overwhelmed. You're feeling anxious. You don't know what you're going to walk into. You don't know what's going to happen from moment to moment. So you're always trying to manage everything before bad things happen. But you live in this land of anxiety, really always waiting for the other shoe to drop, never really thinking you can trust anything or anybody, and you can't. You feel alone. This isn't the type of thing that you talk to your friends about. This isn't something that you're going to shout out. It's not like your Instagram reel. It's like, oh, let me show you the bottles. Oh, let me show you how I marked the bottle and saw how much Ted drank last night on your Instagram reels. You know, everybody's out there living their best life. And a lot of your friends think, hey man, you're doing great. And by all accounts and purposes, your life does look great. But at the end of the day, you know, behind closed doors, it's not that great. And so you're afraid you don't know who to talk to. Or the friends you do talk to about this are like, what are you doing? You need to leave. Like, are you like, you don't love yourself? Like, I would never put up with that in a million years. And they have no idea about your unique situation, what you've been through, how long you've been in this, how much you have vested, all the fear that you have. They have no idea what's going on. So it's easier said than done. Or you go to church and your church friends are like, well, you know, in sickness and in health, and you know, you just gotta, you knew what you was getting into, you know, and you're like, well, is that the godly thing to do? Is to hang in? You're confused. You don't know if you should stay or go, if you're coming or going. You're full of fear. You're full of anxiety. You're confused. You're resentful. You're all the things. But most of all, I think sometimes you feel crazy. And I know you're smart. Like, you know, when you're walking through your day, normally you're like, yeah, I'm firing on all cylinders, Connie. You know, I'm in the meetings. I know I'm doing all the things, but then you're with your partner that's alcoholic or addicted or narcissistic, and all you're doing all day long is questioning yourself. Did I see what I saw? Am I really able to think what I'm thinking? Is it okay for me to feel what I feel? Am I overreacting? Am I asking for too much? Am I ringing your bell? Am I talking to you? Am I singing your song? If I am, you are absolutely in the right place. And I am so glad you found me, because together, if you stick around long enough, we're going to get you off the fence. We're definitely going to get you off the crazy train. This is your stop. I've got you from here on out. And because I've been doing this for such a long time. It's been 20 years that I've dedicated my life to the study of addiction and codependency and the results of helping people break free. So we're going to talk tonight, or today, whenever you're listening to the podcast, the live taping here, we're going to talk about the couples that I meet at the crossroads of stay or go, the toxic couples that I meet. So let's just back up a little bit. Now, I know that you could be dealing with this for a long time. You could be with a partner this is brand new to you. You're totally blindsided. This could be something that it's not your first rodeo. They've been in and out of treatments multiple times. Everybody arrives at the crossroads at a different point in time, and no point in time is the right or wrong time for you to arrive at the crossroads. The crossroads is actually a beautiful place to be. And I know it feels like hell, but you can make a heaven a hell, or a hell a heaven. And stay or go is a great place to be in, because it's the land where decisions are made. And everything in your life, if it's going to change, and if you're going to have the relationships you desire and deserve, and you're going to be the person you know you're born to be and unleash all your joy, it requires a decision. Everything is on the other side of decision, and the limbo that you've been in for a minute, a decade, or 10 months is too long of a torture place to be in, where you don't know. And I've been there too. You know, many times I've been at this crossroads myself where I've thought, man, something's got to give, something's got to change. And some of us call that a holy moment, a come to Jesus, a watershed moment. Hopefully this is yours. What I don't want you to do is dance your way. What people do is they come to the holy moment and they miss the opportunity to make the decision. And I don't want that to happen to you, but let me tell you what people do. They know it's that bad. They catch a live stream. They listen to a podcast. I get emails every day for people that tell me they pull off the side of the road and cry because I'm singing their song, or thank God I found you, Heidi, because it resonates so much. And these are the people that are ready to take some action, and they are ready to change their lives because they know it's now or forever that they're going to be in this terrible situation that's going to continue to get worse and worse. So here's what happens though. You're at this crossroads of stay or go, and I intend on getting you off of that fence with a game plan once and for all. But people are afraid to make decisions. You know what they do is, instead of making a decision, they do what's called the dance of denial, right? In the present moment, you know it's bad. Something happened, usually last night or yesterday, something terrible happened, right? That's fresh on your mind, an incident makes you run to search the YouTube video or the podcast, and you run in and you search it. But what happens is, and this happens to all of us, we have the holy moment. We see for me, so many, one of them, just even me with my, my letting myself go. I'd see a picture with my body and I go, whose body is that? And my face would be cut off and be like, oh my shit, holy shit, it's mine. It surprised myself with how bad I've let things go. Going through my house and seeing like, oh my God, I've let this, it's getting so bad. Things are piling up. So you come to this holy moment, but what we do is in our relationship, instead of being in the reality of what is, where the change is made and the willingness to see things as they are, instead of doing that, what we do is we do that dance of denial. One of the ways is we dance into the past and we start to reminisce. We reminisce about when we first met them. We think about how it used to be. We think about, how things were once upon a time and how they could possibly be that great again. And how another, we minimize it from the past is what we do when we dance into that time zone, because we have references when things were better, or we have references in the past when things were worse. And then we say, well, it's not as bad as it used to be. And then we go, okay, I'm in the past. I'm looking at that. I'm like, well, I've managed to like soothe my feelings for the moment. I've managed to make myself feel better. So I don't really have to make any decisions in the present moment, because I can just travel to the past and romanticize about how great it was, or fantasize about how it's better now than it used to be. Or if I don't want to deal with the reality now, I can dance my way into the future and I can imagine a time how it's magically going to get better. Sorry, I have a tickle in my throat. Let me take some water. I can imagine how if I dance into the future, it's going to magically get better. But here's what I want to lovingly say to you, is that all the power to make change in your life lives right now in the present moment. It is this moment with you and I here right now, this holy moment, this watershed moment, where you can start to see things as they are and make some decisions about your life, your family. There are 2 decisions that I want you to start to make while we're on this subject tonight, okay? These 2 decisions will change your life forever. The first decision I want to help you make is, what am I no longer willing to settle for? And the second decision that you have to make is, what do I want moving forward? Now, the scary thing about these decisions is when I say, what are you no longer willing to settle for? It's a very possible reality that you don't even realize how you're settling. Do you know how when, like, let's take Shit Creek, for example. Okay. I have my Shit Creek survivor hat. If you're a Shit Creek frequenter, okay, and you know how to get into the boat and you've got the oars, you don't even notice that it's actually Shit Creek. It smells, it's bad, it's terrible, but because you know how to navigate it. You're like, oh yeah, there's that part over there, and yeah, I know how to get around this, and so it's kind of like, because you're so good at navigating Shit Creek, you don't even recognize you're in it. It's like, how does a fish doesn't know it's in water? Okay. So it's because your barometer for bad, your compass is misery. When you're in a toxic or dysfunctional relationship, you can talk yourself out of the reality of how bad it is just because it's familiar territory and just because you know how to navigate it. So let's see if the first thing we can do is to help you see that you are actually tolerating some crap here. Maybe you already know. You're like, girl, I already know I'm tolerating the crap. Can you just help me make a decision if I should end this thing or not? Yes. We're going to be talking about this all month long. And I want to say right now, before I even get further into this with you, is that at the end of March 30th and 31st, I am having a live virtual workshop for 2 days that you can find over at HeidiRain.com. So if you're watching this in March, that's when we're having this workshop at the last weekend in March. And I'm going to walk you through for two straight days. I'm going to help you decide with a process I invented, the rapid decision method. I'm going to walk you through a 6-step process to help you decide once and for all if you want to stay or go. So all month long, we're talking about this. Okay. So if you know you want to secure your spots, they're limited, go over now and grab it. And I want to tell you 2 things. It's not for everybody. It's for you if you that workshop for 2 days. It's for you if you decide that you really want to figure it out once and for all, and you want to know and have a game plan going forward. And the other thing is it's an investment. It's not my least expensive investment workshop, right? But it's worth every single penny. So if you can, or place where you can invest in yourself, I highly recommend you go over and check it out and grab your spot now. So let's talk about some of these couples, and maybe you can see yourself in a pattern. Why do we stay in this situation is because we're in a pattern and we don't know how to break the pattern. If it was just a normal relationship where it was like all their fault, they're an alcoholic and it's their issue, it's their problem, then it'd be much easier for us to go, well, I deserve better, I should get out. But that's really what's not going on here. What I really want you to understand is you are in a codependent dynamic. And another way for me to say that is co-addicted relationship. So it's not really just the alcoholism or addiction or binge drinking or functioning alcoholic that you're dealing with. It is the co-addicted dynamic pattern that you are in that has you can't see the forest through the trees. That's why you feel like you know better. You're like, why am I doing this? I know I deserve better. I know this person, doesn't deserve to be with me. I know that they need to go get their shit together and I can't. But you are stuck in this codependent pattern, which is an addiction. Codependency is an addiction. It's an addiction to a behavior that makes us feel loved and helps us function in dysfunction. Now, a lot of people don't understand codependency. I've dedicated my whole life to helping people understand it. Let me put it simpler tonight. Let me talk about some of these co-addicted, toxic couple dynamics so you can identify which one you're in so that you can be like, okay, maybe it's time to break this pattern, right? The first pattern many of my clients are in is the pattern of fixer and victim. Now, in this scenario, you would be the fixer. Why? You're the hero. You have the cape, you have the Wonder Woman cuffs, you have the, you probably love Wonder Woman. You probably are really into that. Somebody, you probably remember watching that show or being really into that even the new movies that have come out, because there's something amazing about this powerful woman who has this intel and this ability to solve all the world's problems and run to the rescue. Now, likely, this isn't something that you just developed in this relationship. If you're in this fixer pattern, you probably grew up in addiction or a dysfunctional family, even though you might not even consider it to be that bad or that you escaped. So like, what's the big deal? But what happened is you were the kid that was like 9 going on 40 and figuring out how to solve all the world's problems, figuring it out for everybody, intervening. Oftentimes you were like the peacemaker. You were the one that came to the rescue and fixed it. And I could relate to this pattern so well. There are many times that I would attempt to, fix things. I tell so many stories about when my dad went into treatment a couple of times and how I flew home when I was living in Los Angeles, and I flew home and fixed up the house. And that's another, you have to listen to that episode. I talk all about it, where I thought, surely I can fix this. And the victim is in a situation where maybe they didn't start out as a victim. They're a person who has a ton of potential. They're just a little wounded. You probably got into this relationship with somebody where you're the fixer. You have all your shit together as a fixer for the most part. Okay. You're accomplished. You have a good career. You know how to do things. You're the rock. You're the one that all your friends go to. You have caseloads instead of friends. Okay. You're the rock. You have all the answers all the time, and everybody relies and counts on you, and like, dun, da, 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 Betty will do it. She'll save the day. So when you meet this person, from the outside looking in, they seem good. They're handsome, or you're attracted to them, or they have lots of charisma, lots of energy, big personality. And you think to yourself, wow, this person seems really great. Now there could be, probably were some red flags along the way that you considered cautionary tales, right? Where they talked about their last crazy girlfriend that couldn't really that left them, or how once upon a time they had a drinking issue, but they overcame it and they just smoke weed now, or, how they used to be like addicted when they were a kid, but they went away, or how, they just little flags, little things, or how nobody just really ever understood them, or nobody ever really stuck it out with them. And, you're the first person in their life that's come along and really made them feel like they can be somebody or do something, or had believed in them so much. And you get locked in and sucked into that pattern because it feels damn good. It feels so good to be, doesn't it? Give me an amen. It feels so good to be with somebody where you know that you are helping them, right? That you're um I'm just starting to see your comments now. Make sure you're coming in. I know you have to use the app to be able to do that. I think the restream thing is what we're using. And if I don't see your comments here, trust me, at the end, I'll get them and compile them. And in our next live next week, I'll answer your questions. So don't be afraid to put your questions in, or your thoughts or comments. Just want to take a little time here. Sharon says, hi, she's here. Hi, Sharon. It's great to see you. I can't see who posted this because it just said it's on the Facebook in our private group, but it said, you have saved my life 7 years ago. I love you. And I already know, I know you and I love you, but I can't, and I wouldn't say your name here because it's a private group on Facebook anyway. So hello. Okay, good. So long story short, when you get into this dynamic, you feel like your value is proven because you're, hey Mariah, because you're helping them. So it's like you get this satisfaction and you see the little wounded bird. And not only do you see the wounded bird, like you have the bird formula, you have the baby bird syringe, you've got the baby bird flap wings mender kit, you know how to do this. And so at first it's really not that bad, maybe their behavior is not that bad, but as it escalates, then you start to amp and ramp up that fixing behavior. And now you notice that you are the one Googling and researching all the time how to break free from addiction. What is withdrawal? How do you detox somebody? You have started to act as a treatment center, a halfway house, or have acted as a counselor, a therapist, a treatment center, a coach, a prison warden, an accountability coach. And you've acted as all these things except for wife, husband, lover, partner, friend, right? So you take on this role. And then what happens is the victim always will stay in a victim mentality. And you think you're going to coach them out of that mentality, but you really can't coach a victim out of that mentality. You can't pull a victim out of that place that they're in. It's an inside job. You can't go down into hell and get down into hell and push them up out and get up underneath of them. That's something that they have to realize they're in hell first. They don't even realize they're in hell. They're in hell because you don't live there. So you're like, oh my God, how do you do that? How do you wake up every day hungover and pretend you're not drunk? How are you hiding vodka bottles in your car and pretending like you're fine? And then you pass out and act like you were tired and didn't have your food today. How are you living this life? You must be miserable. Well, they're living the life. So they're in their head and they have no idea, they don't see what you see. So when they do see what you see, they say things like, well, it's not my fault I'm here. You don't really understand how hard it is for me. Other programs, other things don't work for me. This is the victim talking. I'm not only in this position because of the way I grew up. I had alcoholism in my family. There was addiction in my family. Oh, it's my fault that I don't know because that's the only thing I was taught was how to drink. And so nice of you to have a perfect life, and you're so confident and you have that all together. Well, I'm not as confident as you. Okay. And in fact, when you say things like that to me, you make me feel terrible and you shame me and you make me want to drink more. So now it's actually your fault that I'm an alcoholic because you put too much pressure on me and your expectations are too high. Am I singing a song? Am I singing your song? So you think to yourself, all right, not I'm in a toxic relationship. I need to get out of this thing like your girlfriends or friends are telling you. Hey, what are you doing with this person? You are not in just a regular old relationship that you can exit and have your wits about you because it's not for you. You are in an addicted pattern of behavior that you have to systematically break out of. And I'll tell you what'll happen. If you just leave this relationship without mending that pattern that you have, you will recreate it in your next relationship, and you'll just go from rescue to mission to rescue mission. So I can help you figure out how to take care of that, because there are parts of you being a fixer and a hero that are amazing. A lot of fixers are doctors, therapists, psychologists, people that help people for a living, nurses, military. A lot of fixers are people that are in the front lines, they're helpers and things like that. And that's a wonderful thing. You don't want to get rid of that, but you want to get paid for it instead of date it or marry it. You don't want to do it in your personal life. Your relationship is a place to go where you get fueled up and fed, and you get you get juiced up to go out into the world and do the hard stuff. You go into the hospital and save the life, and then you come home and you don't want to have to wonder if somebody's going to be with it or not, right? That's your partner that holds down the fort so that you can go and do the work you need to do in the world, not make a mess of your home so that you can't even, you don't even know what's going on. But if you don't realize you're in that dynamic, you're never going to break free. So you've got to realize, oh, Heidi, now I see why I'm in this dynamic, because a fixer can't give up. The worst thing to tell a fixer is you failed. They don't want to hear that. They're success-driven people. A fixer is an achiever. They're a high achiever, in fact. And so what happens is you have a project instead of a partner. You've got to learn how to back out of that dynamic, and I can help you do that. Now, if you're curious at all about when I'm talking about these patterns, you can go over to HeidiRain.com right now and take my test. I created an attachment pattern test that will tell you which pattern you're running. And you can email me right after you take that test and let me know. And I will tell you where to go next. I mean, it's, Sharon says, yes, I'm always the fixer, always organizing and sorting things out. And the problem is when you're a fixer, you feel so good about yourself. You sit down with somebody and you're like, well, here's what you need to do. I have whiteboards all over my house. I have 5-part plan, where you're going to go, how you're going to do it, your sobriety network. I can like the matrix, I can connect all the dots and I can feel really good about myself. But then the alcoholic's still cracking a beer. Why? Because I was doing all the planning and the fixing and they had no responsibility. Let's talk about another pattern. Another pattern I see all the time is a controller pattern and a pleaser pattern. Controllers are usually narcissistic people. They're people that, you're in this relationship with them and it's just, you're just doing whatever you can to just not rock the boat. So even though it's different than a fixer rocks the boat because it's their mission. Like they don't get change in the booth and come out in the Wonder Woman gear and get out the lasso and they're not afraid. Okay. A fixer runs into the rescue and goes into the line of fire. A pleaser doesn't want to rock the boat. So here's this person who's likely addicted and narcissistic. And by the way, narcissism and addiction are the same thing. They look the same, they act the same, and toxic relationship recovery from being in a relationship with an addict or alcoholic is the same process of narcissistic recovery in most cases, because the impact is still the same. And we'll talk about that in another live. What is the impact? But for now, what you need to know is a pleaser will not put themselves in the line of fire. They just want to be quiet and keep the peace. This is also known as an enabler. This is the person that sweeps it under the rug, that pretends like everything is fine. So if you're a pleaser, likely your kids are coming to you and they're starting to see something's going on. And what you're doing is ushering them into the other room. You're making sure they're reading or they're playing when mom or dad is doing whatever they're doing. If there's an episode, something could, let's just take it to the dinner table. You could be around the dinner table and dad starts to fall down or act crazy or say something stupid to one of the children. And you will immediately, instead of the fixer, will get up and go to bed. You're, interrupt the situation. A pleaser, instead of a fixer, a pleaser will if Billy's upset or Susie's upset of whatever dad's going on, they will placate and make it like it's not as bad. Well, we didn't really mean to say that. And oh, your father didn't mean that. And oh, kids, and you're being sensitive right now. And that's okay. And is it possible that he had a hard day and maybe he's just overwhelmed and overworked? And no, he's drunk and being an asshole, but no, maybe he's overwhelmed and it's okay. And I know that I can be very curt and upfront in the way that I talk, but it's like, for me, the truth, the reality of what we're doing calling ourselves out on our own patterns and being able to see ourselves live in an action of what we're doing is the first step to breaking free. Or we could just put on a pretender. That's another pattern, right? Pretend everything's fine. So the pleaser will do whatever they need to do. They're the ones in the family often that will, hey, don't drive drunk. I'll drive you to go get the thing, right? I'll drive you to the party so that you can drink, and then I'll drive you home, and I'll make sure you don't. I'll make sure that if you get drunk, nobody sees, and all. So they're always kind of like strategizing how to make everything look fine and okay. And the controller is blaming, gaslighting, manipulating, cheating, hurting. And there are different types of alcoholics and addicts. And I want you to know that, and we talk about this a lot, and we'll keep talking about this on our lives, is that what you need to understand is addiction and narcissism look the same. Um, but addiction creates something called an addictive personality. You're not born with an addictive personality. Addiction creates that. Okay. It takes a person over. It makes them lose empathy, lose their consequence, lose all their common sense. But when they're in recovery, a person who was kind of born a good egg can get back to being that good egg. So many of you wonder, was this person going to get sober and stop being a controlling person? Are they going to stop being an asshole? Are they going to get their act together? And here's what I want to ask you, and this is what we're figuring out in our Stay or Go workshop is, I've got to help you figure out who they were before this thing happened. Because if I can help you figure out who they were before this happened, I'm very likely going to help give you an idea with my crystal ball of who they're going to become in recovery. So if they are narcissistic, and in fact, they get better, and the addiction, it goes into remission. And that's what addiction does. It goes into remission, and they're living their best life, but they're still hurtful, harmful, lying, cheating, manipulating. Then you're dealing with a different type of person. So they might get sober, but do you really want to be in that relationship? These are the kinds of things you want to figure out when you're at the Stay or Go. Let's go back with the fixer and the victim. If they get responsibility, okay, if they take responsibility for their own addiction, that's the only way. You're not going to fix it. They have to get out of that victim, and they have to rescue themselves out of it, okay? And there are ways you can help get somebody there. I do that all day long. We get people into treatment every day, okay? I'm not saying you can't help somebody. You can, but ultimately they need to do it. But here's what happens. This is so interesting. When a person gets better, that was the victim and the fixer role, the fixer, once that person takes over responsibility for their lives and they get better, is a person without a job. The fixer starts to panic, and they go through withdrawal, and they have a hole because they're like, all my life was spent trying to fix you and worried about you, and now I don't have any value here. They'll actually say, what is my value here? If I'm not running to your rescue and helping you all the time and taking care of you and trying to fix you, why would you love me? You see, because a fixer at the core feels unlovable unless they're lending their expertise or their help or they're rescuing somebody. They can't just be lovable just because they exist. Fixers have to do. They don't know how to be. And if you're a pleaser and you're in this relationship, I guarantee you, if you are in a pleaser controller dynamic, when that person gets sober, they are going to stay a narcissistic person. That is who they are. And you'll only be with the person who loves and appreciates and respects you if you deal with that pattern of pleasing, which isn't your fault. You likely grew up in a situation where mom or dad was very mean when they were drunk, or they were hurtful when they were drunk, and you weren't allowed to fix things and speak up. You just had to make it okay. You just had to make it all right. You just had to be, your way was to just quiet down, say nothing, smooth it all over, don't make any waves. A lot of parents will tell their kids when they grew up in an alcoholic house, don't upset dad. You're going to make them drink. You're going to make them do it. So this is a kid who learns okay, I've got to filter every move I make through how it's going to affect you. And this is the very definition of codependency. I can't make a move or breathe the wrong way or do whatever because I'm going to upset you. And they get into relationships with people who confirm that to be true. They're controlling, manipulative, narcissistic, addicted people that make you feel like you're responsible for their hurt and the hurt they inflict on you. And none of that's true. It's exhausting when you're doing it and all they sit there and watch you do everything. Well, so if you're watching this live or listening to the podcast now and you're not live, just had a comment that says, yeah, they're watching you do it, right? They're sitting back and watching you do it. Honey, they're living their best life. They're living their best life. You need to really understand that the person, why would they do that? Why would they watch me run around to the rescue? And why would they watch me work my ass off? And why would they watch me work overtime and do everything I need to do? And why would they watch me run to clean up the messes? Because they're in their heaven. Because that's what they signed up for when they got in this co-addicted relationship. Because if they weren't going to do it with you, they'd find somebody else to do it with, because that controller needs a pleaser. The victim needs a fixer. So you have to know when you're staying or going you can't be with this person unless you both stop your roles. Okay. You can't just say, well, I'm going to stop fixing and they better stop being a victim. Honey, they're never going to stop being a victim. You better get out. You better say, I'm going to not be a fixer and pick somebody who's not broken. You can't say, well, I'm going to stop being a pleaser, but they're going to keep being a controller, because you're going to stay in that dynamic for the rest of your life. You got to get out. This is how you know if you got to stay or go. Listen, I really want to encourage you to sign up for this workshop. I know it's an investment. And it's worth every penny. What is the cost right now of you being on the fence in this limbo? What's the emotional cost to you, the psychological cost to you, the financial cost to you? It's time for you to invest in yourself. And I know that's hard for you to do, but if you really want me for 4 hours on a Saturday and 4 hours on a Sunday in a curated small space where we can hammer this out once and for all, then I want you to go over to HeidiRain.com and sign up for my March workshop, Stay or Go. That is the topic. That is what we're doing. Now, I'm going to be back next week, and we're going to talk a little bit more about why we stay, some of the reasons we end up in this position, and how we can shift our thinking a little bit so that we can free up a new perspective, a new idea. I think Yogi Bhajan said that a miracle is a shift in perspective or perception. If we can just start to see things a little bit of a different way, I think we can open up a portal to change. It's a good thing you're here. I have to say, I'm not for everybody. I'm looking at my logo. My logo it says Heidi with a sword through it. And really the sword is because, I want us to think about us on this journey like a warrior. You've got to be willing to take a stand and cut through some shit. I'm happy to be your guide. I'm not afraid to wield a sword. I'm not afraid to come alongside of you and stand in that position of protection while you're figuring it out. You deserve to be supported the way you are supporting everybody else, especially the people that don't appreciate it or even realize or recognize what you're doing. You deserve that same level of support. I know it's hard for you to ask for it or to reach out for it, and that's why I'm glad you're here. Okay, so take it a step further. Go over to Heidi Rain, grab your spot on that workshop that we have coming up. And like I said, I'll be here next week. My commitment to you is to be here with you Wednesday nights. This is our first Wednesday night live. I will be back next Wednesday. This will be uploaded to a podcast. So here's what I want to encourage you to do. If you are wanting to ask a question and you don't know what's going to happen, you don't know if your question is going to get on there, you don't want your name out there or whatever, you can go to my website, HeidiRain.com, and send me an email and send me the question you want me to ask. Okay. You can type in the comments. And basically what I want to do is at the end of our session, I am going to do a Q&A. So next Wednesday night, we're going to talk about the reasons we stay, why we stay stuck, and how that all works. And then I'm going to do a Q&A at the end of it. So come prepared with your questions. Be thinking when you come to these live sessions, What can I know, feel, understand, or get a handle on that could change my life today? What could I walk away? Because that's what I want you to do. I know it's 7 o'clock on a Wednesday night Eastern time here in the States. This is your time is so valuable. I want to pour into you so that you walk away. Now, sometimes you're going to walk away and you're not going to feel empowered. You're going to feel convicted. You're going to feel like, oh shit, right? But isn't that great? Isn't oh shit a great position to be in because you can go, now what? Right? I love it personally when I have an oh shit like, oh wow, okay, yep, that's what's happening. I love that because that is the precipice, like I said, to decision, the precipice to change. That is the holy moment. That is the watershed. Don't miss an opportunity to change. If you're serious about it, go sign up for the workshop. And if you're still thinking about that, then I'll see you next week. Okay. I love you. Uh, I'll see you next week. And I can't wait to be with you again. Post your questions in our private Facebook group. By the way, if you want to remain anonymous and be private, our Facebook group is there. It's called Addiction and Codependency Breakthrough with Heidi Rain. You can search it out and request to join. It's private. Nobody can see you in there except who's in there. Or if you want to comment and you don't mind, you want to be known, you can ask a question on the YouTube stream when we're live, or if you're on the podcast and listening to it and you're not going to watch the live on Wednesday nights at 7 p.m., whenever this is uploaded, you can go over to my site, HeidiRain.com, and send me a message and ask about your question. I love you. Take excellent care of yourself. Do something nice now for yourself. Go leave this episode and feed your body something beautiful, nourishing. Do something to your body, nourishing or wonderful. Give yourself some kind of a gift just for investing your time in you, because that deserves a big reward. I love you, and I'll see you again next week. Good night.